Hi, welcome to Adventure and Learning Go for C# Dev. My name's Ken Faulkner, and for the last 10 years or so, I've been predominantly a C# developer. But over the last 2 years, I've been doing more and more Go. I'd just like to share some of what I've discovered in my journey. These are personal observations only. I'm not going to be stating this is how you should definitely do it in Go. This is something you should never do in Go. This is just one person having a play and getting fairly decent at it. So I'm assuming everyone's a dev, so I apologise for the speed of all this. First off, the basics. It is native. It produces native binaries. There's no more MSIL, there's no Java byte, or anything like that. Everything's pure native. Wide OS support. So you've got a bunch of official ports, and then you've got various community ones. So chances are, if you want to run Go somewhere, your platform will be supported. Simple syntax. Now, as much as I'd love to use the right tool for the right job language-wise, I'm getting to the stage where I can only remember maybe 2 syntaxes in my head with any level of decency. Go's syntax is just really simple. It's got more of a chance of sticking in my head, which is definitely a benefit. It produces a single binary. So if I was to write a command line tool in C#, for example, chances are I'd end up with an executable, a bunch of DLLs that are pulled in from NuGet, and I'd also have other DLLs that I'm assuming, just say in the case of Windows, assuming that the OS is providing. In the case of Go, you get a single executable. So you know if you've copied that one file, so you do an X copy of one file, you've got everything you need. It's not a case of, did I copy everything? Am I missing anything? No, everything is there. Obviously, there's a trade-off. Hello World in Go can be quite large. So it really is a case of just what you'd prefer. And I have to say, being able to copy one file and just know I've got everything, very beneficial. Personal opinion. It's best used for systems development. So if you're writing an API, or you're writing a website using a framework behind the scenes, obviously, or you're writing command line tools, this is where it really excels. You could, in theory, I suppose, write a UI application in Go. I've heard of people messing around with it, trying it, but I'm not aware of any that are sort of, oh yes, Go for the UI. Maybe it exists, maybe not. This one's a bit flame baity. It's traded trendy for practicality. Now, I cop abuse from a couple of friends. Go's ignored the last 20 or 30 years of language development theory. Sort of, it doesn't have this new feature, that new feature, like Scala, like whatever. Yeah, that's true. But it is simple. It is really practical. And so that was a very conscious decision. And so for me personally, being able to have these simple building blocks to work, to build my software with, maybe there's a bit more boilerplate, but it's just, for me, extremely productive. So yes, doesn't have the latest and greatest. Hello world, although I don't actually write the words hello world there. If you don't know the Go syntax, but you do know C-ish languages, this should make sense. So package main, everything's in a package. Ignore that for now. Import. We import something called FMT. So we're using some library. I've got a function called main. It's my entry point. I call printf. There's my string. It should be fairly obvious what it's doing. I'd like to go through the good, the bad, the ugly with the language. So I've already touched on this. Small syntax, awesome for my brain at least. Great concurrency model. Now, if you've only vaguely heard of Go, chances are it is due to the concurrency model, which is called Go routines. If nothing else from this talk, go out and if you're interested in go and Google Go routines. It's just worth it. But I'll touch on this in a second. Interfaces. Now, we all hopefully know how C# use interfaces. With Go, it is different, and it's really powerful. You define your interface. So this is my interface, here's my method signature, and so on. I've got a concrete implementation. This concrete implementation is said to implement this interface as long as the signatures match. You haven't actually said, I'm specifically implementing this. As long as it matches, it's good. Which means that wherever this interface is referenced throughout the code, you can drop in this concrete class. It might seem like a lot, but it's really beneficial when you want to start extending other classes, other structs. Very, very useful. Garbage collection, sort of no-brainer these days. Okay, runtime performance. With the stuff that I've done, again, personal observations only. I've written C# tools and either ported them to Go or was like, no, okay, let's just rewrite it and go. The Go, for me, the Go ones are always from a CPU point of view, absolutely better. Sort of using less resources and so on. But the real differentiator is memory usage. So my C# version of a tool that I'm writing might take 200 or 300 working set memory. The Go version, it might use 30, 40 meg. It's a really big difference. Now, maybe I am crap at C#, but I'm a Go programming god. I don't know. I don't think it's the case. But just everything that I've written, the Go one is definitely using less memory, and CPU is definitely better. Going back to Go routines, think of them as C# tasks with queues for inter-task communication. So you've got your main execution thread, you launch a Go routine, and there is a queue. It's called a channel. You put this will put something on the channel, this processes it. This might also have another channel just to return the results. Hey, here's the results. So that's how it works. You can have hundreds of thousands of these things without any problem. I've heard of people going sort of upwards of 1 million. Just they use very little memory in comparison, so that's how you can get away with so many of them. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Please reuse your Go routines if you can. Just don't go nuts. But at the same time, if you want to start, every request that comes into my server, put it on a Go routine. As long as it makes sense what you're doing and you're not just going nuts, yeah, it can handle it. It's very, very useful. Think of green threads-ish, but done right, in my opinion. Here's a super quick example. I've got a function main. It goes off and does do super complex calc. After that, it goes off and does some more other complex work. Then we finish. Then it dawns on me, that do super complex calc. I should have renamed it as something else. I could actually do that concurrently to the other complex work that's later on. How do I execute that concurrently? In Go, to make something a Go routine, you literally put Go in front of the call. So I haven't actually had to modify the function. I'm just modifying how you call it. Now, with C#, I'd start breaking out the tasks, the async awaits and so on. You could absolutely do it, but the thing I want to emphasize here is how simple it is in Go to be able to do this. Now, so you might have heard of the phrase async all the way down. You're not necessarily going to have that problem in Go. Okay, that was the good. Now it's the perceived as bad. There are no generics. So if you have a list of ints, a list of shorts, you want to write a sorting routine, okay, maybe you've got to write 2 versions of it. You can actually get away with that by using interfaces, but generics as we know and love them in C#, nope, don't exist. That initially was what the hell were they thinking? But to be honest, now after a couple of years, it's not an issue at all. But when you first get into it, it's like, what were they thinking? This is the one that impacts me. No NuGet. We are so spoiled in Visual Studio to be able to do right-hand click, blah, blah, blah. Here we go, we've got JSON.NET. In Go, everything is reversed. Everything is referred to via source. So before in the other one where I had FMT, I was referencing that library. In there, I could actually put github.com/Azure/Azure SDK for Go. That is how you pull that in. Now you can handle versioning, as in making sure I've got a specific version, but it's not anywhere near as nice as just you get click, click, bang, it's there. I so hope they figure out how to get something similar. There is no link. Link is a memory pig. It is a CPU hog, but God, it is useful. Just being able to sort, okay, let me filter this list by name and then sort by age. In Go, no, there's a lot more work to do. The cliché. Tooling. I think it's safe to say that most Go developers are Unix-based, and the Unix guys are, quite frankly, more comfortable with the command line. A lot of the really good Go tools are command line based. So if you're going to get into it, you're going to have to get used to the command line. Editors and IDEs. The list of supported editors definitely growing, but sometimes it's a hit and miss. Sometimes, like I use VS Code a lot, sometimes you'll be wanting the IntelliSense experience and you're waiting for it to have your function appear or something like that. Yeah, sometimes it'll be instant. Other times it'll be, waiting, open up Process Explorer. You've got 20 instances of Go processing something in the background, trying to figure out what does he want next. It's improving, but the tooling isn't perfect. There are no exceptions. So in this case, I'm calling do something. I return an error. I have to check whether doesn't equal nil. Think of nil as null. So If it's not nil, oh, we've got an error. Let's go off and process it. Otherwise, continue on a merry way. Again, it sort of is, what were they thinking? It's got me to think more about my error structures, and it's a bit more boilerplate. It's a sort of small ifs, but it's really not the end of the world. Object-oriented. According to the Golang FAQ, the answer is yes and no. It is, they're not sure. There are no classes, there are only structs. That means there's no inheritance. Everything is via composition. So you can have this struct, and you can sort of embed this struct, embed that struct, but there is just no object-oriented as we think of it. And to be honest, in C#, over the last few years, I've been doing less and less, like, okay, maybe a little bit of inheritance, but not like I did 10 years ago. So it doesn't impact me too much. Think of methods as C# extension methods. So everything is having an instance passed into it. So here's an example. I have a struct called calculator, and I have a total, which is an int. I have two methods. Add to total, which takes an int, but I also have that C* calculator. That's the instance that's getting automatically passed through. So in this case, I get that c.total, I add x to it. Same with the display total. I'm just referring to the C version there. Again, conceptually, if you just think of extension methods, you're fine. Overall thoughts. Brilliant for server work, brilliant for tools. Being able to become really productive in this, it took about a couple of weeks to really start cranking out some really decent code and really performant code. Very helpful community, not just the Go people themselves, but most of my work is to do with Azure and Go. The community there, just really, really helpful there. But it's missing some nice to haves. NuGet and Link are my two big bugbears. I just wish they'd have something. Anyway, that's it for me. Thanks.